Okay. Right. So where we're up to is right. That's right. We just started the new sugya. So we're going to begin again. And basically, this is kind of the sugya at the beginning of Ches Sabatim, the last seven daf from Chof Ches to Lamed Hem base are really quite unique. It's a very unusual sugya where it's basically case studies one after another. And now the Gemora goes back to, if you like, more traditional sugyas. So like, going back to understanding the Mishnah. And the Mishnah says we're up to the two dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down. We did start this last time. We should go over it. Cheskos and Sholosh Sholem Yom. So we said that Chazaka has to be complete 3 years, right, from one day to the other. That's what makes a Chazaka. Omer Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba says, "Idoli leiu gufei tzino de peri la'al tavi Chazaka." So the Gemara is going to deal here with, is there something the person who is claiming ownership of the land, that means to say, you are the squatter, someone comes along and says, it's my land. Is there something he can do to fatally compromise his claim that it's his land? And so that's really the question. Oh, heroic efforts. If was there something he can fatally do to compromise his claim? Can he do something which makes it so obvious that it does belong to you because of an action he's done, right? So that automatically gives it to you, and we stop the clock on the 3 years. What are the 3 years for? 3 years.
Last year, I think, giving the fruits.
That's what we're talking. That's what we're doing. We're just going over it. Exactly. That's the case. Exactly. The Abbas says, if he lifts, this is it. Deja vu. Yeah. That's chazara. That's what chazara is. Deja vu. If he lifts up for him a basket of fruit, I'll tell you chazaka. It's chazaka immediately, right? That means to say the person is squatting in the land, and let's say he's been there 2 years, right? And someone else comes along and says, this is my land, I always owned it, it was never yours, and show me your documents or whatever it is, right? And he hasn't yet had 3 years. If there are Eidim that during that period of time, those past 2 years, this person who's claiming it's his actually helped him gather in the fruit. He helped him load up the pickup truck with the apples, right? He helped him put the apples in the back of the van, whatever it is. That is a knockout proof that it belongs to this chap, because you would never do that if you were claiming ownership. The last thing you would do is demonstrate that it's the other guy's by doing something to help him along, right?
Assuming no cash changed hands with the transaction.
Well, we don't know anything. All we know is Reuven and Shimon, right? Each claiming ownership, right? Reuven says it's mine. Okay, why? Because I bought it from you fair and square, and I've been in the land for a couple of years or whatever it is. Okay, that's not enough. He hasn't got chazak, hasn't got 3 years. And the other guy says, not true. It's not true. You stole it from me. You never bought it. Whatever. It's my land, right? If the other guy, the guy who's squatting, can bring Eidim that the person who's claiming it was always his actually helped him during the 2 years to gather in the harvest or whatever it was, that's a knockout proof. That everything else falls away. The Rashbam says, if you look at the first wide line, the Rashbam, if there are witnesses that this ma'arer, the person who's claiming it's his, lifted up the basket of fruit from the land on the shoulders of the machzik, who is arguing that he bought it, right? Because he assisted him to carry the fruit home, right? That's what he did. He actually assisted him to carry the fruit home. He can no longer ever claim, I didn't sell it to him. He should never have helped him gather the fruit. He should have objected. And the fact that he helped him, he's lost out. It's like he's admitted that he sold it to him. And therefore, everything else is now irrelevant. Everything is irrelevant. The whole point of chazaka is because we say that there's a problem you've got to demonstrate ownership because the other guy, where's your star? Where's your star? Yeah, that's what he said. That's a problem. Well, within 3 years, you've got a star. After 3 years, people don't keep their stars anymore. So the fact that he didn't because he didn't object, that's a proof. Really, it's all irrelevant. If I do something which demonstrates that it's as if I admit that I sold it to you because I helped you load up the fruit. Yeah, then that is enough. That's a chazaka immediately.
Why can't we pin a town?
Who?
The guy that's squatting. In other words, the real owner of letting.
So that's Gemora is going to deal with that.
Did you say capital?
Yeah,
Doesn't prove.
This is what Rav Zvid going to do. Exactly. Yeah, he's going to get. There's a counterclaim here. There's a potential counterclaim, right? The counterclaim is, you know why I helped him with the fruit? Because we had an agreement that he was a tenant or whatever, or he was entitled to fruit, and he was working the sharecropper, he was working the land in order that he gets the fruit. That's the deal, right? It wasn't he owns the land. What was it?
I just guessed that.
Comes with years of experience. There is another pshat in the Rashbam which he doesn't like, so we won't spend too long on it. But he does bring Rabbeinu Chanal's explanation, who goes in a different direction. He talks about if there's Eidim, Rabbeinu Chanal Pirish, Sadi, if there are witnesses, to Yoav Le Lekeach Lemore Ara Sino de Peri, that the buyer gave to the owner of the land a basket of fruit during a gift Lo Lichol Beisoi to his house. It shows that he actually was allowed to eat the fruit, and he was giving his own fruit to the seller. But Rabbeinu doesn't like that explanation. The Rabbeinu looks at it the other way around. He says the case is the other way around. It's where the person who's claiming chazaka gave some fruit to the person who claims he's the owner of the land, because that's a proof that you own it. If you go and give something as a gift to the person who claims it's his, well, then that's kind of demonstrates that it's yours. You would never do that. But he doesn't like that explanation. So we'll stick with the first one, which is that the person who's claiming he was always the owner, right? The Mori Kama, the original owner, is claiming he did something which seems to fatally compromise his claim, because otherwise, the fact that he helped him load the truck up, that shows that really he doesn't own the fruit at all. But Rav Zvid says, Omar Rav Zvid, back to Gemora, if he claims and says that I put him in the land for fruit alone, he's believed. What does that mean for fruit alone? It means that, like a sharecropper, in other words, yeah, if he says, if you look at the Rashbam, next to Omar Rav Zvid, if the person who's being ma'arer, the ma'arer is the one who is challenging the machzik. Get the terminology right. Ma'arer is somebody who is challenging, and he's challenging the machzik, the one who's sitting in the land. After he lifted up for the buyer the basket of fruit, after doing so, if he claims and says leperos heradativ, I put him in the land for fruit. In other words, kedin oris, like a sharecropper, the mechzer shlish revia, for a half or a third or a quarter, and all I was doing was lifting up and giving him his portion. Ne'eman, he's believed. He's believed, and he doesn't lose out through the act of lifting up the fruit for him. Yeah, you understand? So that action, in other words, he can remove the fatal compromise that helping the guy with the fruit has created for himself. If he argues and says, he gives an explanation. Exactly. It's exactly plausible explanation. His explanation is, you know why I did this? Because he was my sharecropper, and it's a reasonable, nice thing to do. I own the land. I'm the king of the land, but nevertheless, I like to help my sharecropper every now and then. He's a good guy. He looks after the lands. He gets the apples, and therefore I helped him that day. Put the apples in his truck. I'm a good nice guy, and reasonable landowner. That's it. The Gemora says though, Vahani Mili, the Gemora qualifies this. Vahani Mili b'soch sholosh. This is only within 3 years. Who never believed after 3 years. If he wants to start claiming after 3 years that he is only a sharecropper, that doesn't work. Right? If you look at the Rashbam, Vahani Mili the Ne'emon, when did he believe b'soch sholosh? Only within 3 years. If he had sold it, if he bought it from him, why wasn't he careful with his shtar? So that's within 3 years. Yeah, he's believed to say that I only put him there I helped him with the fruit because he's an oris, he's a sharecropper. That's why I helped him. And then he's believed, and the other guy he hasn't lost out, and therefore he can challenge him, and he can say it's not your land anymore. You haven't got chazaka, so you're finished, right? But that's only within 3 years, because within 3 years, there is a direct reason why we're not going to believe the machzik. What is the machzik claiming? I bought it from him, but we haven't got 3 years chazaka, so you should have looked after your shtar, right? Why do you look after your shtar? And that's why the machzik loses it. If it's after 3 years, if he starts making claims and says, yeah, I only gave it to him. You know why I didn't object? Didn't object during the 3 years because he was a sharecropper, he was an oris. That's why I just put in there for fruit. He's not believed. Even if, right, he did not lift up the basket of fruit or help him in any way. Even if he didn't compromise his position by helping and assisting the machzik, right? Even if the ma'ara didn't compromise his position by helping him with the fruit, he's not believed. Why? The ad tlas shonin is dainish b'shtori, because up to 3 years people are careful about their documents. Tefillah is there. After more than that, they're not careful. And this one should have made an objection in 3 years, as the Gemora goes on to explain. Because at the end of the day, what you can't do, as the Gemara is going to explain this more, what you can't do is you can't make a claim after 3 years and say, you know why I didn't object? I didn't object because you were my oris, you were my sharecropper. Because within 3 years, you should have done something. You should have objected if that was really the case. Because you knew that come the end of 3 years, this guy's got no document anymore. So obviously, he's been there 3 years. It's a very real chance that your nice, friendly oris who's been working the land loyally for you, your tenant farmer, or whatever it's called, right, who's been working the land loyally for you all these years, is very likely at the end of 3 years, he's going to turn and say, it's mine, chazaka. I bought it from you. And you won't be able to challenge that. So therefore, the fact that you didn't object is a stronger presumption that he is telling the truth, that it's really his land that he bought from you, and that he's not your sharecropper, your oris. It's not reasonable. Think about the balance of reasonability. That's a good legal word, right? Okay? It is less reasonable to assume, we don't know who's telling the truth, right? Reuven or Shimon. Reuven claims that he was just a sheikh. Again, he's been there 3 years, in the land 3 years, right? And he claims he bought it, right? Reuven claims that Reuven is the Morikama, the original owner of the land, right? He claims that, and on that there's no dispute, right? Because he says, I bought it from you, right? So there's no dispute that Reuven used to own it. It was his historic land, right? Reuven claims, yeah, you know why this guy has been in the land for 3 years and I didn't say anything? Because he was working for me. And Shimon claims, no, I've got a chazaka for 3 years. No one objected within 3 years, and I bought it from you. Who is more likely telling the truth?
Chazaka is stronger than.
Yeah, but why? Why should we believe Shimon more than Reuven? Reuven says, I didn't object because you're working for me. Yeah, because the very fact that after 3 years there's no documentation means that no one in their right mind, would allow a tenant farmer, yeah, to sit in the land free for 3 years without turning up or making all he has to do once, just once in the 3 years, he has to. But just reminding you, by the way, all he has to do is make an announcement saying, by the way, this is my land. That's all he has to do. That's a machop. That's an objection, right? You don't think so, Paul?
I'm just trying to work out if there's not some kind of niggly on the other side of that. You could say, well, I could have just objected, but which would be better because I didn't. So it shows I'm telling the truth. But, you know, I'm trying to work out if there's like a reverse niggly something on the others. The guy who didn't object.
What
said I could have objected, but no, that's because that's a slightly different kind of concept, isn't it? They would sort of say.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
No. There is. It's interesting because Tosfos asks a different type of thing. Tosfos asks, why can't when on this the starting point of the Gemora, which is if you lift up the Paris, that's a proof that the guy owns it. If you helped him, you lift it, right? So it says you could just say you should believe him that it's his, that it's really his, that you own the land. Migoy, and that you didn't, you just helped Migoy. You could have said, I gave it to you as a sharecropper. The Paris are additive. That's a reasonable Migoy. It's a Migoy, Well, he's saying that it's not. I just helped you with the fruit, right? And as a Migo, he could have said, I just put you in as a sharecropper, and you'd be believed within 3 years. And Tosfos says that doesn't work because it's a Migo Mokamedim. Because since we assume Anon Sadi is a type of Eidos, we assume that since he's helped him with the fruit, he's admitting that it's his. And also, he doesn't want to say I put him in. He won't want to claim that he made him my sharecropper because the Ma'ara is claiming it's all his, the fruit and the land. So the Migo doesn't work in that context anyway. Anyway, but either way, hopefully that's clear. That all we've done is we simply said that there's a chazaka immediately if you show within 3 years, if you demonstrate something that shows clearly you admit the other guy's the owner because you helped with the fruit, right? Then it automatically goes to him, unless you have a reasonable explanation. What's the reasonable explanation? Reasonable explanation is he's my sharecropper. That's why I pay as a relative, and that's why I helped him with the fruit because that's what he does. But that only works within 3 years. After 3 years, all bets are off. After 3 years, if you haven't said anything within 3 years, you are no longer able to legitimate whether or not you've helped him load up the fruit. Makes no difference. You are no longer able to say, right? Yeah, you know why? Yeah, you know why I didn't object because he's working for me. You can't do that. It doesn't work, right? It's not a reasonable thing to have done because you knew he wasn't going to keep the shtas. He should have said something, and therefore the assumption is that it belongs to the other guy. Remember, always as we go through this, those sugyas that we learned right at the beginning of this parak, the rationale for Cheskas Gimel Shonim, right? And the Kovet Shirim says this, and others. We saw the Ketzos. It's a takonas chachomim, right? The Chazal needed to make this institution of 3 years that it becomes yours, because otherwise buyers would never have the security they need. People did not keep documents forever in those days. It wasn't like nowadays. Didn't have the possibility, the conditions. Well, yeah, it just wasn't possible. So therefore, a lokeach would be in perpetual risk of losing their land. You could pay a fortune for land, right? And you'd have no protection. It was a protection. It was a state-sponsored, whatever you want to call it, protective mechanism to ensure that people could know that when they were buying something, they were buying it in perpetuity, or at least till you're over. Yeah. Because then you have to go back anyway. Right. So now the Gemara carries on. Amalei Rav Ashi. Right. Amalei Rav Ashi Rav Kahana. Now Rav Ashi says to Rav Kahana, he says, hold on a second. You're telling me that after 3 years, you can never be believed to say that this guy works for me, and that's why he was there for fruit. So he says, Ila pera achte, but if he was, if he was your sharecropper, if he was working for you, right? What should you do? What are you supposed to do? Let's say you're a massive landowner. Let's say you have properties all over the world. I don't know what, all sorts of things, right? What are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to prevent someone claiming ownership after 3 years have passed? And he gives the obvious answer. Amalei said to him, he should have objected. He should have objected within 3 years. He should have made some objection in front of Adam and said to them, listen, this is the deal. The deal is within 3 years, he should have explained clearly in front of Adam that why Ruvain is busy with his combine harvester in land which is mine, because he's working for me. Should have done that within 3 years.
Well, surely we've known that. I mean, if he's sharecropping or paying, then he's getting rent or crops every year. It's obviously a share.
No, but yes, but the point is, we don't know what he's getting, or we don't know the financial arrangement of who's getting what. Sharecroppers also very easily, it's quite likely that there wouldn't be paperwork, because the whole concept of a sharecropper is that you work the land, and you benefit from it. You just take a proportion.
Well, exactly. So he's got to give them a proportion of it. Yeah. So that surely would be.
But maybe no one knows about it. Who sees it? Where does it go? I mean, it could be in a storehouse for years. It's not. That's not clear. That doesn't prove But the point is that as soon as someone has made a statement in front of Eidim, and remember we have the constant chavra islay, if you've said it in front of two people or whatever, it's going to get back to the ears of the person squatting in the land, right? Then he should have been careful with his shtar, even after 3 years. That's the whole concept of mechol. You remember, the whole concept of mechol. If someone has objected, you're no longer going to be able to turn around at the end of 3 years and say, I lost my shtar, what can I do? Because you're not going to lose your shtar if you know someone is after your land.
This whole
You're going to keep it.
Not having
Exactly. All together, it's exactly that. One depends on the other. You can only have chazaka, because we assume you don't keep your paperwork. You only don't keep your paperwork. It's nice round, right? You only don't keep your paperwork if you don't make an objection. If someone makes an objection, you will keep your paperwork, and therefore you've got no chazaka. It's a nice little
could be unlucky. I mean, facts aren't always as neat. I mean, you could be unlucky. You just lost it, even in unhappy circumstances. You lost your shtar. And you see these things happen as well. I mean, it's a presumption. We didn't have presumptions that often.
Yeah. I mean, you could be unhappy. Yeah, you could be unlucky in the sense that you just lost your shtar. Within?
Someone was objecting.
Yeah, you could be. You could be. But you'd need to keep. Most people would keep hold of it if they knew what was going on. And the Gemora brings a proof. But the Gemara brings a proof that it must be that a person is allowed to claim, cannot claim that the other guy is working for him, and that he is required to make an objection, right? You can't, after within 3 years if it was true. Says the Gemara, because if you don't say this, hani mashkanto de surah, the concept of a mashkanto de surah, a mashkanto de surah is a special type of arrangement, which basically means that you lend someone money, and then he gives you his field, whatever, right? And obviously there's a problem of ribis. You can't. If I lend you money and you give me a field, then obviously it's a problem of ribis if I benefit from the land and you have to pay back. Pledge the field. It's collateral. No, but the point about the collateral is collateral is a risky business, because if I'm allowed to use the land as collateral for the loan, that's ribis. And what? Then you're going to pay me as well?
Why is it ribis? Sorry, you give me the land back.
No, but if I'm benefiting in the meantime, let's say I lend you money, Ellie, for 3 years, and you give me the land as a mashkanta, which is like a it's collateral on the loan, isn't it? Is that the right word? Security on the loan, yeah? That's what it is, right? In modern Hebrew as well, a mashkanta is a mortgage. What? Yeah. So okay, so I get the what's it called? I get the land. Okay.
So I actually take possession of it.
I take possession of the land, or I benefit from the fruit, or whatever it is. So obviously there's going to be ribis if I then go to you after 3 years and say, can you pay me the full amount I lent you? That's interest.
But what are you meant to do with the fruit? And so on.
So this is what Mashkanta de Surah is. Surah is the name of a place. There's a Syria. And Mashkanta de Surah is that it pays back the loan.
The use of the fruit.
Yeah. The use of the loan is
capitalize the fruit and pay risk.
Yeah. It's there are proper good legal terms for this in English as well. When you what's the word we're looking for? I did a law degree a long time ago. What was that? That says, it's capital repayment. That's right. The fruit is a animal
size.
Okay, they are right. They are.
No, but it's no animal size things of interest. It's repayment relation to capital.
Yeah. So my obviously my loan is I'm watching my loan go down each year, right? So that's why because you're benefiting from the fruit. Okay, that's how it is. Now that's what mashkanta de surah is. So Dila Timahachi says the Gemara, Hani Mashkanta, if you don't say this, Hani Mashkanta de Surah, this Mashkanta de Surah, the Kosav Bahu, in which it was written, the documentation that accompanied this type of loan arrangement, it was written explicitly, the Meshalem Shnai Elaim, there we see we're coming on the contract now, Meshalem Shnai Elaim, in the completion of these years, X number of years, Tepuk Aradob Lo Kesef, the land should go out without money. So it could be a 10-year arrangement, for example, right? 10-year arrangement, and it's clearly documented. But after 10 years, the land goes back below kesef. That means to say the land goes back to you, and I can't get any more money from you. Why? Because you've been paid back your entire loan by using this land over 10 years and using the crops, a 10-year 10-year worth of crops, we estimate was the equivalent of the £1,000 that I lent you. I lent Ellie.
Would that apply even if the amount? The assumption is that the amount is going to be £100 a year, whatever.
Something like that,
So
which actually works
so
out.
even if it was less, there would still be no better.
So that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I think Rashbam deals with this. Yeah, the Rashbam deals with this. It's a concept. This is quite a zoneshech type stuff, but it's what we call korov l'schar and korov l'hefset. It's like they have it's like they have on the little small print. Your what's it? Your thinking.
Price go up.
Your investors can go up and down or down. It can go down as well as up. We're offering you this incredible deal, but you should know you can lose it all, right? So that's the thing. It's korov l'schar, korov l'hefset. It could be 1 year is a fantastic crop, but that's not ribis. Because it's not guaranteed. You could be less, could be a bad crop. You get 10 years, and it's estimated that that's enough to pay over the loan, and you could end up getting less than your. It's equally close to a schar, to profit, as loss. Right? And therefore it's not interest. This is like a real Ezel Neshech Ribis territory, this type of thing, but that's the idea, right? That's the idea.
So this is much kind of sort of gets round ribbon.
Yes. When in Ponovich, when we learn Bava Metzia, the Yeshiva learns Bava Metzia, in Ponovich they do one Masechta a Zman. Always change every Zman. It changed into a new Masechta, which means that some Masechtas you have to work incredibly hard to try and finish Masechta because it's like only 5-6 months, right? Except yes, that's right. I think summer and Elul are one, so that's like one Masechta, and then winter is another Masechta, right? That's how it works. Except when we get to the cycle got to Bava Basra, because Bava Basra is so long that it's summer and winter, right? When the Yeshiva learn Bava Metzia, that's interesting. Yeshiva learn Bava Metzia, the Kolel, Ponovich Kolel, do just a zoneshech. They spend the whole winter's month just on that parak. Zoneshech is the parak of Bava Metzia that deals with ribis, which is notoriously complex and difficult to understand, especially if you're not good at math. And that's they spend the whole winter's month on that parak. I don't know if it's timed the same time as the yeshiva learn Bava Metzia or not, but anyway, it's a complicated area. So this mashkanta to surah. There's an obvious fault with this arrangement, because if the lender hides the documentation of the collateral, if he hides it, yeah, gabe with him, and he says, I bought it, here as well, he'd be believed. Yeah, he'd be believed. Yeah, you can just hide the documentation, and the guy can't say anything because it's been 3 years, more than 3 years. It could be 10 years, right? It's enough years. I can just claim it's mine. I own it, right? And if that's the case, the Bachatz in a few words, you're going to say, okay, maybe that's a risk. Yeah, that can't be because Misakni Rabbanon. Midi the Ossi Bay, would the rabbis institute something, would the Rabbanon institute something, which is going to so obviously lead to a loss? This Mashkanta Dusura was a takana de Rabbanon. It was a way of allowing people to benefit from money they need to live on because they might have property, but they can't monetize it, so they can use it as collateral. So the Rabbanon instituted this whole thing called Mashkanta Dusura, which avoids the problem of ribis. That's the whole idea of it, right? It avoids ribis because it's reducing the loan, the debts, right? That's what avoids ribis. So the Rabbanon are not going to come up with this wonderful system. Chazal are not going to come up with a wonderful system if it leads to a peseda, if it leads to a loss, an obvious loss. It's flawed by the halachas of Chazal. You've got two opposing forces here. You've got Bava Metzia on one hand, and you've got Bava Basra on the other, to put it crudely. Do you understand? You've got Bava Metzia on one hand, which is ribis, right? So Chazal come up with this wonderful idea to avoid the problem of interest. The Torah says you can't charge interest. So Chazal institutes something called the Mashkanta Dusura, which enables you to lend people money, and people are going to want to borrow money, and you're going to want to lend money because you know you've got land and you can benefit from that land, and that pays off the debt, and therefore you're happy because you got your money, and I'm happy because I'm getting my debts back whilst benefiting from the land, and it's not a problem of ribis, right?
Well, why doesn't the borrower just keep the land, and it just the guy that lends the money has a pledge on it? No,
because I think because no. The problem is like this. Ribis, the halachas of ribis prevent me benefiting from the fruit. Right?
Well, I don't understand what it is. If I'm the farmer, right, and I come
Yeah.
to you and say I need a loan.
Yeah.
If I can't pay back the loan, you can take the land.
Right.
In the meantime, I'm going to work the land and I'll give you some produce every year and pay the loan back.
So you're saying why can't this be a private arrangement, and why did it need a takana d'Rabbanan? Why did it need a takana at all? Right? Basically. Yeah.
I suppose
The answer is because without this institution of Chazal, I can't touch that land. It's halachically also for me to touch it because it's ribis by definition. If I'm benefiting, I've lent you money and I start consuming the fruit without a mechanism and without a system set up by Chazal to permit it, which is what this Mashkanta D'Sura was, and it wasn't so simple because, like we see, there's issues of if you might end up getting more. You might end up having more fruit. It might be something which looks very like ribis because you might end up getting more fruit. If you think about it in a straightforward manner, right? According to the Torah says you can't charge ribis. That means, I can lend you £1,000 and you pay back £1,000. That's it. There's no shticks. There's no like I can start. Okay, fine. I'll lend you land and I'll start you eating the fruit, and it might be a bit more, but it's okay because it could be less. These are all things which skirt quite close to the problem of ribis, and therefore there was a whole takana d'Rabbanan, to avoid the problem. But the point is that here this whole institution is got a problem because Bava Basra says that chazaka. 3 years, people don't keep their documents, and that means that this is a wonderful thing that Chazal have instituted, but it's liable to but it's like abuse. It's liable to abuse because it creates a situation where people can very easily claim chazaka because I'm holding onto your land for years, and no one no paperwork. I bought it. It's been 3 years. Right? So this is the Gemara's there. For the Gemara says, you're going to say it's okay. Rabbanan wouldn't institute something which comes to a loss. Ella rather he should have objected. That's the answer, and that's why it's not subject to that abuse. Because the reason why Mashkanta D'Sura is a safe thing for Chazal to implement to avoid ribis, and they don't have to worry about Chazaka and Bava Basra problems, is because you, the borrower, has to object once during the 3 years in front of Adam. Say, by the way, do you know this is my land? I'm just putting it on the land, putting it on the land registry. This is my land. Yeah, certain ownership. Here as well says my boy here as well. He just has to object. So all the Gemara has done is just brought this in as a proof, right? Rav Ashi challenged Rav Kana and said, if the person has gone into the land, if he's genuinely an oris, he's genuinely a sharecropper, then you're liable to, you've got massive risk. You're exposing yourself to risk because your sharecropper might decide that it's his and might, after 3 years, turn around and say, I lost my shtar and it's mine. And the Gemara says no, and he answers no, because all he has to do is object once. And it must be that is the case and that is sufficient protection for this type of arrangement, because if it wasn't, the whole Mashkanta D'Sura arrangement would also fly out the window. That's what the Gemara. That's the Gemara. Yeah.
So in that example, does the sharecropper? Can you just say at the end of in the fraud case, the abuse case, would he just say at the end of the 3 years, or would he during the course of the 3 years have he said, "Oh, actually, no, I'm the owner, I'm not the sharecropper, I'm actually the owner," or is it just something? You know what I mean? Because the person who's the true owner of the land is only going to object if the other person is saying, I'm the owner. So maybe not.
So you're saying the sharecropper is going to say what?
So does the sharecropper have to can stay silent for the 3 years, or he has to be asserting ownership during the 3 years?
Remember, the sharecropper doesn't own it.
I'm saying, but if he's trying to abuse the process.
Oh, if he's trying to abuse the process, well, he won't be able to, because he'll have to have a shtar. You have to remember the sharecropper is only able to abuse the process if he can claim chazaka. Chazaka is dependent on, I didn't keep my documents because I don't keep my shtar more than 3 years. That part of the process will not work if someone has made a machor. If someone's made an objection, you should have kept your documents. So therefore, he doesn't have documents because he's lying. So he doesn't allow him to claim chazaka, right? Chazaka is all dependent on. Yeah, but again, his starting point has to be, I bought it, And the reason I have no proof is because no one keeps documents over 3 years. But people do keep documents if someone else objects, right? And that's why they have to keep documents. Assume they will, right? Okay, let's see the Rashbam. Rashbam says, Ile pero achte. Yeah, so it's just 3-4 lines before it gets to the widest lines. Ile pero achte, if he put him down for fruit, ki mashkanto de surah, like a mashkanto de surah, the mashkanto de surah arrangement, le'eser shonim for 10 years, or le'eser more for 20. It's interesting. The mashkanto de surah, this arrangement with the collateral of land, is a long-term arrangement. It's assumed to be 10 or 20-year term. It wasn't just like a couple of years. It was a long-term thing. What should the owner of the field do? Nimsa, it would come out, anyone who puts his friend lepeiros for fruit, to benefit from fruit, shall shalish shonim yoser. In other words, you make a sharecrop arrangement for 3 years or more. Yafsid karka shaloi. He's going to lose his land. Hoil, since v'lo yeh ne'eman la'acha shalosh, since he's not going to be believed after 3 years. Liton leperos relative, to claim that I only gave him permission to eat the fruit.
Wouldn't both parties have documents?
Well, the person who's really interested in the documents is the buyer. The seller might have a copy of the documents, but he's not. The buyer is the one who wants to claim that having no documents, is because I didn't bother to keep them anymore, and therefore it's mine.
Yeah, but it's the other guy. Hang on, the Ma'ara, is that it?
Yeah, the Ma'ara, yeah.
He's got, if he's the one that's agreed this part of the Surah with the guy that's occupied.
Right.
Now that's occupied, it's obviously got.
Oh, I see. You mean he's going to come out with a documentation that says with Mashkanta the Sur arrangement? You mean the lender?
It's more than the case when he.
So there's right.
Must be two parts.
Yeah, no. Yeah, but I don't think documents. It does. Yeah, that's a very fair point. It doesn't sound like documents were 2 ways. If the documentation is held by me, who is currently in the land.
Well, that really is asking for trouble.
Yeah.
After 3 years, you don't need it.
Yes. You see clearly from the Gemora the fact that there's this risk, without him objecting, there's this risk that there's no paperwork, clearly tells you that the paperwork was held by the buyer.
Yeah.
Paperwork was very expensive. It doesn't like they didn't do duplicate, triplicate, and all this type of stuff. No one does that anyway now.
Yeah, we learn a lot about Shtar.
We do infinity copies online.
There's a lot of things in the Gemara. The Shtar's got about Shtar.
Yeah.
They did exist.
Yeah, the Toras, yeah. Of course, it existed, but the idea and the notion, right, that you have automatically a 2-way copy of a document, for example, I've got a document that I left, and this was the arrangement, and this is the arrangement, doesn't work like that. I've got documentation in my hand, right, that claims that I bought it from you. That's what it is, right? I claim I bought it from you. I've got document that claim I bought it from you. How are you going to argue against that?
No, you were saying, and I don't have it anymore, so I don't need to keep it.
Exactly. I can't argue against that. Unless I object. Yeah, that's it. And that's what he answered. Look at the first wide line. Amalei said to him, all he had to do was object. So sholish, and within 3 years, velomar, and say, le'edim, to witnesses, du'u lochem, you should know. Shalapeiros eraditiv, the kach v'kach shonim, but I gave him the land just for fruit for X number of years. V'guf hakarka konoili, and the body of the land is owned by me. That's all you have to say to the agent.
All right.
Yeah, once in the first year. It's fine.
The other agent to do this, you have to set it up.
It's such a big deal.
Set it up.
Yeah, but all you have to do is say that.
It's like objecting is usually someone does something wrong and then you're objecting. But
Yeah.
You're not actually pushing back against a claim because he's not claiming anything. This is my point.
No,
He's not claiming anything for 3
no,
years.
no.
He's waited for 3 years.
No, but it's such a simple thing to do. That's true. You're preempting his ability to claim, and you need to be prepared for that. And it seems to be that it is not an unreasonable expectation that we have to people to do this. Exactly, people to do this. It's not an unreasonable thing to do.
Objecting sounds like pushing back against a claim.
No, but Shim'ein lo shtar mechir lazar machzik, because if this machzik doesn't have a document that he sold it to him, Lo yuchal liton, he won't be able to claim shtar ha'yali va'ovad. I had a document, it was lost. Kilonis harti ba'achasholish. I wasn't careful after 3 years. The kivon de micha boy balasoda. Because since the owner of the field objected, he should have been careful with his document. You're right. Objecting is a bit difficult term here.
It's an assertion.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Setting up, you've got to protect his rights.
That's right.
By doing something proactive.
Yeah.
With aid.
To be mocha means to object. So, what does it mean? Why are we calling it objection? Because it's a preemptive objection. It's an objection to a possible future claim that the other party might make. So you record in front of Adim, which is as good as recording it anywhere, for as far as we're concerned. In front of Adim, we record that this is the right, that this is the fact. These are the facts. These are the facts. The facts are that this is not your land. This is just land that I have a business arrangement with you, that you work it for me, get X number of the crop, whatever, etc., etc. And in case he comes along and tries to, now it's entirely possible. It's entirely possible that the guy could take his eye off the ball, the landowner, and not do it.
Yeah, he's opening himself up.
Yeah, it's his own problem. It's his own fault. He shouldn't do that. Shouldn't do that. Remember, we are worried about the little guy. To put it bluntly, who are we worried about? We're not worried about Mr. Big Landowner. What? No, but the mechanics of chazaka, the whole parak, yeah. Like I said, it's a takana. Like Rabbi Chanan says, it's a takana chachomim for buyers. I call them the little guys. They're not really the little. They're not always a buyer. Can be the big guy, but it could be. But he is by definition in a disadvantageous position because someone always come along. So you didn't really buy it. It was always mine. Everyone in town knows it was mine. I'm the ancestral holding. This was my grandfather's, my great grandfather's. There was a palace on this land. Whatever it was, this is my land. How are we going to protect the buyers? He's the little guy in that sense. And the answer is we're going to protect the buyers with a system which enables them to lose their documents or not have to forever keep their documents because people won't, and still be able to claim ownership, right? Part of that takana is expecting a seller who is worried, yes, not a seller, sorry, a landowner who has not sold land, but has actually entered a business arrangement with this guy to use him as an oris, as a sharecropper, to get up and say, I'm laying the facts out here that this is not an arrangement of a buyer and seller. Transfer. You understand? That's all part and parcel of the zakona. It's true that it creates an expectation and it opens him up to the possibility of neglecting to do what he's supposed to do, which means that he might lose his land. That's true. But what's the alternative? The alternative is that someone, right, could always 5 years later say, oh, no, it's not yours. You're just working for me. That's no good. Again, that will not. That's the, exactly. That's not fair. We can't allow that's a much bigger possible abuse. If you buy land and the guy who sold it to you can turn around 10 years later and say, actually, we had a long-term deal. It's actually mine. I never sold it to you. I never really sold it to you. And the guy says, yeah, and he's got no paperwork.
After 3 years, the presumption changes.
Exactly.
But
yeah,
it seems very strange to me that you've got a 20-year agreement for this.
Yes, 20 years, yeah.
That you can leave your documents up for. Because you can have 20 years, 10 years, 15 years.
No, the point is that you have to make an objection to prevent that happening.
How can the guy not? He's got a 20-year arrangement and he doesn't have to keep it for more than 3 years.
He does. If the guy makes an objection, you've got to keep it forever.
Right.
I believe. Yeah. Look, let's see that. Let's finish the rush. Let's finish the rush.
There's no issue at all. All right.
No. Yeah, you object once. That's it. We'll object once. Yeah. Look at the Rashbam. There's 2 more Rashbams. Look at Rashbam. Yeah. Well, see, because if you don't say this, third line into the widest lines to Rashbam. Right. Okay. Because if you don't say this, that an objection by halves, meaning shemoicha al hakarka, he objects to the land, umoidi beperis, but admits that the fruits, because that's what we're really dealing with here. This is not a normal objection. Normal objection is, it's my land, you stole it. This is a halfway house. This is an objection in the sense that I'm objecting to the land, right? I'm saying the land is not yours, but I'm agreeing that the fruit is yours. If you're going to say that type of objection, lav machoi, is not an objection, come on, you're going to suggest that the only valid objection is by saying this guy is a thief and he's eating my crops, the land, as a thief. And tomorrow I'm going to take him to Beis Din. You're going to suggest that's the only valid claim, right? That's the only valid machar, the only valid objection. If that was true, then imkain, if so, high mashkanta d'sura, this mashkanta d'sura, this deal about land. Also, what it's a bit confusing. What the Rashbam is doing, that Rashbam is simply explaining why it is we need a proof. Isn't this all obvious? Why do we need a proof, right? That this about machar, about this. The answer is because this is not a standard objection. A normal objection is the owner of the land says, I stand in front of Adim somewhere in the 3 years, and I say, this guy who's squatting in the land, he's a thief.
He shouldn't be there at all.
He shouldn't be there at all. The chiddush here is that you can have a halfway house objection. That you can go up in the middle of the 3 years and you can say in front of Adim something more subtle. You can say, you see this guy there, he's there legally, right? But he's working for me. Right? He's working for me. He's entitled to the fruit, but he's not entitled to the land. That's what we need a proof for. And we're proving from the setup of Mashkanta d'Sura that must be a valid thing to do, to be able to get up and say, the arrangement is X, Y, Z, right? And that prevents someone claiming ownership. Because if you don't say that, says, look at the next Rashbam, you can claim high mashkanta d'sura, but zakanta d'Rabbanon, havya hach mashkanta, this mashkanta arrangement, this collateral arrangement was a takana d'Rabbanon. It was an institute of Chazal, mishum, because the hamalva lachaver al sadeu, someone who lends someone else on his field, that means to say the field is collateral, oselech ala peris. The halacha is you can't eat the fruit. Mishum ribis, that's interest. But if you're deducting from the loan, whilst the fruit that you eat deducts from the loan, right, it pays off the loan, ke'en mashkanta d'sura, like mashkanta d'sura, like this arrangement of mashkanta d'sura, shemalve asora moneh al sodehu, which is that he lends 10 moneh, 10 coins on his field, sof eser shonim, and at the end of 10 years, at the end of 10 years, the land goes back to the borrower for free. And then it comes out that he's buying the fruit of each year for 1 moneh. It's 10 years. Yeah, I lend Eli 10 moneh, and I get to use the land for 10 years. That means I've bought the fruit of each year for 1 moneh. 10 years, 10 moneh, right? You got it? Yeah, simple as that, right? That's allowed. That's mutter. That is mutter. Ve'ein kan sad ribis, and there's no tzad of ribis here. Va'af al pi. This is the chiddush. Even though sheshovin aperis kiflayim, the fruit might be worth double. It could be the fruit is worth double, and I'm making a lot of money on it. Yeah, because it could be the fruit each year is worth double. Why is it allowed? That's ribis. I'm making more money. I lent you 10 money. I'm making 20 money. The answer is sharehu korov l'schav a korov lehefsit, as we said. Could go the other way. Exactly. It's close to profit and close to loss. Shemakabel perishel kol shana b'moneh, because you accept the fruit of each year for 1 moneh. That's the deal. Va'afilu b'shnas shidofo. Even if the crops are blighted, you never know what's going to happen. How do you know the crop? There could be no crops. Shelo yehu shovim peris hashana dinah. It could be that the fruit of that year is not even worth 1 dinah. If there's a famine, yes, God forbid, what happens? What happens? I lose. So even if we both know that, assuming everything goes well and nicely, and the rain comes when it's supposed, rains come when it's supposed to come, and everything else, I'm gonna make a big profit. It's not ribis, because I may get nothing. And that's called korov l'schar and korov lehefsit. Now, I imagine the Gemora will see. I don't recall exactly, but I'm sure the Gemora goes through different possible permutations of how this can be affected by, well, the likelihood What is the likelihood of the hefset, etc., right?
Nowadays, obviously, you'd insure against that kind of thing. Was there a concept
Interesting.
of insurance in those days? Because that would then just, you can cover your downside.
I think they lived on the
There
edge.
is
Man.
no
I think they lived on the edge. I think they lived on the edge. I don't think there's,
Wouldn't be able to Gemora anymore.
at least not in the way that we think of we think about it. Is there a concept of insurance? I don't think so. Not in that way. Yeah. No. And you see what you see here. There's no. Pardon?
Or is it entirely a business arrangement?
No, that's the business. That's how it works. It's a business arrangement that basically that's how and that avoids the problem of ribbons. That's the point.
But it also means that the guy could make a loss on his.
Yes.
business as well.
Yeah, he could. That's exactly the point. He could. This is we both freely enter this arrangement. I don't have to enter this arrangement. I could lend you £1,000, and in 10 years' time, pay me back £1,000. No, exactly. It's a business arrangement. Most ways you get around ribbis. This is what a heter iska is. That's what a heter iska is. A heter iska. It's not the same as a heter iska, but the concept of a heter iska is that you turn the loan into a business deal. It's a business arrangement, right? If you lend money to Israeli banks, you've got to be aware of all this stuff, right? The banks have a heter iska, or you should have, better have, right? This is all to do with how it works, right?
You might need to have a heter iska klali anyway, as well. On the other side.
As well, like exactly, yeah, you have to look into it. You have to know if you do business in Israel, it's something you have to look into. Exactly, yeah. Anyway, so let's just do the last verse. Ikovish. So again, the problem is going to be the same. If the lender holds onto the document, ikovish tomen hamalve. If the malve hides it, right, like hatmona, on Shabbos when he wraps some food, yeah. If you hide it, if he hides the loan, tomen hamalve, v'oman, he says la'acha sholosh, after 3 years, the lender could just hide the shtar, and he could say lakuchi biyadi, hides the document, and he says I bought it. Hochinami. Here as well, you're going to say he's believed. And this other one can't say that you're telling me the other guy can't say that I only gave it to him. The lender can't say, sorry, the borrower can't say that I only gave it to him just to consume the fruit. And the objection doesn't work. This halfway house type of objection where he says, right, that he's allowed to be there, but only to eat the fruit, right? And he doesn't own the land. You're going to say that that's acceptable. If that can't be, the they have sibitmia. Would Chazal institute something which means that the borrower is very likely going to create a major loss for the borrower, right? Because the lender is very likely to hide the document and say, "I bought it from you." That's the risk, and you have to say, "Why were Chazal not worried?" Because all he had to do was object. So here he says every 3 years. So we have to look into this, yeah. And then the objection works. In fact, he didn't object. He loses out. He should have objected. It's reasonable to expect the borrower, in this case, because the borrower is the one who owns the land. The borrower is the one who's going to lose his land. He should make an objection. He says within each 3 years. That's what he says. Shachanami here as well. In Isa de Lepera Achte, if it was true that he put him in for fruit alone, he should have made an objection within 3 years before the guy was able to make a chazakah, right? He should have done that, and that's a reasonable expectation, as we've said. We've proven it from Mashkanta to Surah. Chazal would not put together this whole thing in Bava Metzia to avoid the problem of ribis, right? Where I can basically use up the loan, I can pay back the loan by you eating the fruit, etc. If I'm going to expose myself to a massive risk where the guy's going to go along and just claim that he bought it and he owns it, right? The lender's going to claim he owns the land. So it must be that the reason why we're not worried about that is because all the borrower has to do is get up once every 3 years, we're saying, right, and say, actually, I'm just making clear in front of Adim that the land is mine, and he's only allowed to eat the fruit because of the Mashkanta Dusur arrangement, and similarly now Gemora as well. Yeah, the bottom line is, if you have land and you have an arrangement with someone else as a sharecropper, he can be there for years. It doesn't matter, right? He's never going to be able to claim chazaka. Why? Because you get up in front of Adim and you make a statement. It's seem every 3 years.
That 3 years matches the chazaka period.
Yeah, exactly. As long as he doesn't have a 3 year period with chazaka. I used to have a recollection. We don't have time to see this now. I had a recollection that he's got to hold his stuff. Once you've objected, he's got to be careful with his stuff forever. So you might have to see, whether there's such. Here it seems to say certainly in the case of Mashkanta, so it's every 3 years. Okay, we will Mitzvah Hashem carry on next week. Yeah, next week is share as normal. Like I said, I have a chasna out of town on the one day after that. So next week is normal. 27th. I'm not here. Yeah, next week is fine. Okay. Okay. Have a good evening. Okay. See you.